Hello and welcome to the home of the Ghost Owl, and continuing our High Elf faction focus for Warhammer The Old World, we're now looking at the High Elf heroes, seeing how they played in the Warhammer the 8th edition based on their army book, which might give us an idea of how they might play, certainly flavour-wise, in Warhammer The Old World. So without further ado, let's take a look at our first High Elf hero. So the first one up is the Mage, and as you can see, it's the same image as we had in the Archmage, and that's because you can use them as either, and they're basically the same as the Archmage. However, they're a level 1 or 2 wizard if you pay the points. However, their mount options are significantly reduced, only being able to use either the Elven Steed or the Tyrannok Chariot, and they get the same special rules. Often taken, they're a cheap support caster. Caster's magic was very strong in 8th edition. Put them in a unit of archers, very common to keep them at the back. Archers can still influence the battle, particularly with elven archers being pretty good. And the mage is then protected in the unit. A lot of flexibility, so if your archmage went high magic, yes, you get the +1 to cast on Lilia's Blessing on high magic, but it gave you the flexibility to tech into any of the 8 basic laws if you wanted specific spells from one of the other laws of magic as well. So definitely you would see some of these lower level casters on the battlefield, and I would say out of all the heroes, generally you would see the lower level casters more commonly than like lower level nobles and melee heroes. You normally have your kind of lord and then a bunch of lower level casters. So often even 2 mages in an army list. So yeah, very common unit, and expect it to be the same. It'd be interesting to see how magic works in Warhammer The Old World. There's been kind of a bit of teaser on rules, no magic phase, so we'll have to see how it pans out if casters, particularly low level ones, still have the value of taking them as much as you did in the 8th edition. Next up is the Noble. So the Noble here is medium weapon skill, ballistic skill. It's basically the Lord. The pack you see on the right there, the image, is a box set that you got a Lord on on an Elven Steed, and then you got a Noble on foot carrying a battle standard. So same options as the Lord in terms of equipment. So huge amount of variety. Lots of mount options, basically just can't take dragons. So, again, pretty flexible, and he can be the battle standard bearer. Again, commonly, like the Prince, gets really expensive when you fully equip him. But most of the time, if you were going to have a noble, you take him as a battle standard bearer. You stick him in a Death Star style unit, such as a big unit of Phoenix Guard with a big banner, either giving the unit like huge amounts of durability or a whole host of killiness, depending on what you're going for. So, yeah, seeing one noble, yes, quite common, but he would be the battle standard bearer as opposed to just this melee hero running around the place. It was more about the magic banner that he took as opposed to what he did, and therefore often you would keep him quite cheap in terms of his equipment as well. Okay, next up in terms of our high elf heroes is the Dragon Mage of Caledor. So as a mage, yeah, he does have low stats, but of course, this is all boosted by the fact he is riding a Sun Dragon. So that he can only ride a Sun Dragon. He can't ride the others, but he does have a Sun Dragon. So low stats, but boosted by being on the dragon. No weapon options though, which makes him kind of interesting because he's riding this dragon. You kind of want to get the dragon in combat, but he's not going to do much other than cast. So again, it's kind of an odd choice. He's level 1 or 2. He uses spells from the Law of Fire, as you might expect. Got quite a lot of bonuses in terms of special rules. He gets Reckless, which is +2 bonus to cast, but he can never get a bonus for dispelling. He's a warrior mage, apparently, so the first spell generated is the Flaming Sword of Ruin. stat wise, he's not much of a warrior, but he certainly is a mage. You get the dragon fire, which is a strength 4 breath weapon with flaming from the dragon itself, who can also fly. Large target though, can't get cover modifiers. Scaly skin 3+ on the dragon. Yes, it's a dragon. They're pretty tough, right? Some of them toughest monsters in the old world. And then terror. So he's immune to psychology himself, but he causes fear. Charged unit must take a panic test, and that's mainly because of the dragon. This is the dragon causing terror. So it's a cool and unique, flavorful unit that I really quite like in terms of its principle. But it really only saw use if somebody was going for like a Calidor themed army, where you're going heavy on dragons, dragon princes, all that sort of stuff. He's expensive. He's 350 points. That, when combined with much other needed lords and heroes, it made the army list very skewed and character heavy, and that really wasn't the meta. The meta, as I've said before, was these large infantry blocks. So you didn't really see many people using monsters or characters riding monsters that much anyway. And at 350 points, he was quite a lot, and you could probably get more value out of your mage taking the Law of Fire and or an archmage taking Law of Fire if you want to go down that path, hiding them in a unit. You think how many mages you could take. You're up to sort of 3 mages for the cost of this one dragon mage, and the fact that you've got this dragon that you kind of want in combat, but he's not going to boost the dragon's combat. It's kind of, again, a bit hybridy in what it does, but really unique, really flavorable. Maybe if he'd had some slightly better special rules to make him useful, you might, give him that feel much more. And I think that's what it is with these hybrid characters. You've kind of got to give them something unique in terms of a special rule that makes you think twice about, okay, not the best magic, not the best at melee, but this special rule is really unique and interesting and actually could be cool for the army. So that's the Dragon Mage of Calidor. Next up, we have the Lothern Sea Helm. So no guesses as to what he is. He essentially leads the Lothern Sea Guard. Good weapon skill, ballistical initiative, high leadership, low strength, toughness. He does have low attacks for being a hero and wounds. Limited weapon options, but does fit with leading Sea Guard, which means he comes with a spear, light armor, shield, and has the option to add a bow. You can mount him on a Sky Cutter if you wish. Special rules-wise, Naval Discipline, which is actually quite a cool rule, which is if a unit is charged, he can take a leadership test, which means he can change formation after the enemy's moved all the charging units. So you could have your Sea Guard strung out in a line, maximize the shooting, you get charged. He passes a leadership test. They reform into a multiple rank square, if you like, and then they start getting their rank bonuses for fighting. Plus, they're using spears and so on with martial prowess. They can fight in an extra rank, so that's quite nice. Windrider, 4+ ward save against shooting, and reroll failed dangerous terrain tests if on a Sky Cutter. So, despite most armies having Lothern Sea Guard units, and that's because of the Island of Blood, you got Sea Guard. You didn't actually see the Sea Helms that often, unless somebody was taking a Sky Cutter. Sky Cutters weren't that popular because a lot of people didn't like the aesthetics of them. And also at 200 points, again, you've got a very expensive character here. And as a mediocre hero, I mean, he's good in combat, and the special rules is nice that he's able to reform. I think the main issue is that with the Sea Guard, they're kind of, again, this hybrid unit that was actually quite taking quite a lot, which was the shooting, but you wanted to keep them quite cheap. So you'd shoot them, they could fight a bit in combat. They weren't going to, win any records for their damage output, but they were quite useful. They had shields, reasonably durable from that regard. So, but you didn't really need the Sea Helm. That really wasn't, they weren't rushing to get in combat. He doesn't boost their shooting, Maybe if he'd boosted their ability to shoot, he would have been a more usable hero. But he doesn't really. Just the change in formation is also interesting because with martial prowess, you can already shoot and fight in those extra ranks. So it's going to be only those rare occasions when you're going to need to reform, and the cost doesn't justify that. So that was our Lothern Seaham. Cool looking model though, and fits really nicely with the Island of Blood Lothern Seaguard models. Finally, for our High Elf heroes, we've got the Handmaiden of the Everqueen. So, medium weapon skill, but high ballistic skill, initiative, and leadership. Low strength, toughness, attacks, and wounds. No weapon options, but she does come with a spear and the Bow of Avalon. The Bow of Avalon giving her strength 4, 24-inch bow with additional -1 AP to forces of destruction, flaming attacks, and volley fire. So that's quite a nice bow, and comes with light armor. So she's not the most durable of heroes, but she does get Quicksilver Shot, which is a quick to fire special rule to a whole unit of Sisters of Avalon. So there's no penalty for moving and shooting, and you can always stand and shoot as a charge reaction. So quite a common character, I have to say, especially if you're teching into Sisters of Avalon because of the unit buff. She's got okay melee, combined with that always strikes first. Her durability is an option. She's going to fight first, but if she can't kill that unit, and that unit's pretty tough, she's not that durable. So having light armor, though, that to be said, if you're in a unit of Sisters of Avalon, you're not rushing into melee combat, and your biggest threats would be more like skirmish units, fast cavalry, that sort of thing, of which she could probably do a good job. If it was heavy cavalry, that would be an issue. So, quite a common character. Nice to give the move, no penalty for moving and shooting with that Sisters of Avalon. The ability to move archers, shoot them without penalty, does make them quite flexible and gets them around the board, combined with a 24-inch shooting attack. So, quite a good and useful character. And I think that's where you come back. You've got a character here giving a good usable buff to the unit, makes you want to take that character, for whatever that particular buff is. If it's a non-situational one, of which that one definitely isn't. And again, even though she's got low durability, you still want to take her because of those sort of buffs. There you go. That is the High Elf heroes. I hope that gave you some insight into how some of those heroes played before and how they might play and work in the future, what sort of units they might be attached to. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, though, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. And as always, if you want to see more content, please hit that subscribe button. Just click it down below. It costs you nothing, it's totally free, but it's a massive deal for me, so thank you for that in advance. You've been watching The Ghost Owl. Tune back in for some more of our High Elf faction focus.